I saw it for the first time last night, and it was just like for the first time as a real audience member last night, and it was just like mind-blowing. It was so exciting to see. And last night was also the first time we didn't have the fire alarms go off.
My name's Andrew Schneider. I'm a performer. I make stuff. I make usually time-based art, and usually that gets made in the theater. I made a show last year called What You Said, and now we have a remount here back in New York after some touring. It's a show, like you buy a ticket, you come into the theater space, you sit down, your attention is focused in a particular direction, as with most theater. This show happens to take place in the space in front of you. There's no fourth wall, there's no other world that is created. We don't go anywhere. We're not transported out of the room, or at least not in the beginning. And basically, there's a man on stage, talks to you. You realize pretty soon that he's an unreliable narrator, or maybe you're just not sure who's in charge, and maybe that's not important. Then at a certain point during the show, a thing happens, and the space changes, and you realize that the first half of the show is maybe not what you thought. And you start to maybe question the reality of the room and the reality of your perceptions, hopefully. The show continues in that vein until sort of a final resolution where, again, your perceptions are challenged. And hopefully you walk out of the theater space with a deeper connection to yourself and a deeper connection to humanity, and maybe a changed way of looking at things. I never sat down to write a show. I never wanted to write a show. Definitely not this show. I had ideas about things I was interested in, and those are just always kicking around. And you know, they sort of have a little bit of gravity to them. So like-minded ideas sort of cluster in these little pools around you know, a person's work. And the Catch Performance Series, Caleb Hammonds and Andrew Didwinny and Jeff Larson curate 7 minutes of work, and they just ask you to do it, and everyone goes and you see it. And they said, do you want to show something? I said, I don't have anything to show, but I had built this light frame that's in the show. It's just a thin strip of steel with LEDs on the back, and I was really into this notion of being able to change architectural space by using lighting instantly, and LEDs allow you to do that. So I thought, well, I could show that. I hadn't written anything for it. I thought, well, maybe someone should be there, and maybe they should be saying things. Maybe it should be me. Maybe I should just write some stuff about my life, because that's, you know, I don't really have stories I want to tell, but I have experiences I want to share. But most of the programming happened in my apartment, and then we got residencies. I mean, residencies, you know, it was like, you just ask, you know, you just like ask everyone. You say like, hey, do you have any time or space, or if you don't, can you suggest anything else, you know? But they were really crucial. Abrams Art Center was crucial. The Bushwick Star was so crucial. They were so generous. I mean, even, you know, we had the annex for one of those residencies, and then we had the main space for another residency, and Mass Live Arts was so crucial both times. The first time I made a bunch of new stuff, and then the second time we actually did the show and figured that was our first tour after the Coil show.
I mean, the stuff he was doing was along these lines, like the kind of, you know, magic he was making with tech, and it was like, obviously this guy's like a, you know, next level artist working with these tools. It's pretty amazing. Well, I mean, there's a disorienting quality to it, and he's definitely playing with that in this piece. The whole thing is set up to create an atmosphere of not understanding exactly what's happening, and I think that's, you know, and then it becomes this metaphor for, you know, being alive. And I could suppose that could be challenging to someone. I mean, I think it's incredibly enjoyable, you know. I mean, it's so much fun to go on that ride with him and not know what's going to happen next. And like,
my name's Ilan Backrack, and I'm the artistic director of Mass Live Arts, an experimental and contemporary performance festival in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. You know, the audiences up there are great and very devoted. and very supportive of the institutions that they see work at. And I was just dissatisfied with the lack of contemporary work being presented. It felt very safe. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it just wasn't interesting to me as far as exploring the possibilities of different forms of performance, which is what the kind of work that I try to bring to the festival. Performances that challenge what our understanding of performance is or can be.
So I met Andrew at Mass Live Arts, and then when I moved to New York, I ran into him a few times and then got involved with a show at Three-Legged Dog. Seeing it in the context of New York City theater has, I feel like I saw it when it was just Andrew's ideas, and now it's this huge hit.
I was working at the Mass Live Arts Festival when Andrew was workshopping You Are Nowhere. He just walked into the room and was like, "Can anyone dance?" And I can't really, but I said yes. Or I said like, "I can learn," or something. So he took me into the other room and was like, "I'm gonna teach you this dance." I mean, he's a nice guy. And it's cool because he does all the stuff himself. He programs the lights, he programs the sound. He is the sole actor. Skidmore requires you to have sort of universal knowledge of everything theater. It was cool to see someone doing a show that I really liked who did use all that stuff.
But yeah, every space really influences the work, which is great for me. And every space that we go to and tour to, it really influences the work because it takes place in the theater space in front of you. Even though we build this theater inside of a theater, we send drawings and stuff, but we don't actually, it's not until we get into the space that we're like, oh, that's what this feels like to be here.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh yeah, let's put that first row there. It's so stupid, but we really try to, it's almost like it's site specific. Like we really try to like decide what is the best for every space that we go to, and everything comes into play. From even down to how do we get here from entering the building from the street, and how does that affect how you entering the theater feels, Yeah. When you walk into a parking garage, you're walking into a warehouse, you're not walking into a theater, even though you know you're going to see a theatrical event. There's just something, I think, that's unconscious about the way that if we walk into a theater, we know we're going to see something theatrical. If we walk into a space like the Three-Legged Dog or the Invisible Dog, we're just not quite sure, and maybe we don't think about it as much, which I think the show relies on a little bit. So everywhere we went, we realized that we had to build a theater inside of a theater. I always hold to this notion of like, yes, plan the whole thing out, like storyboard from 1 to 100, but you do number 1, and that changes everything else.
Yeah.
So you don't like, step 1 dictates what step 2 is. Like, if you're the only thing you have to do is drive at the idea. Like, if you know that the idea is good, then like, it can happen in all these other ways, which is exciting because all these other byproduct ideas will start happening as well. I knew that if I drove at this idea of synesthesia, where the light, sound, video, and gestures were all happening at the same time, if I got 99%, it would kind of be cool. And then if I got to 100%, it would be the thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get there, and sort of trust that. And, trust that, but also trust, so the second half of the show, that sort of hyper-precision in performance was also a thing of this, we might spend 3 weeks on this, and it might be terrible. I am surprised also how much this show can handle. Like, I've been devastated in the past where cues have gone wrong. I'm like, well, no one got the experience. No one got it. Like, no, everything's ruined. And, there's a show in Australia where 3 separate microphones broke in one night. So we had to stop the show 3 separate times. And I was like, well, everyone hated it, obviously. And it didn't, people were like, was that real? That's great. It really started 3 years ago with like, now everything's crazy, and isn't that, and like, I just wanted to like jolt people out of their realities.
Yeah.
That was the goal, and then somewhere along the way, I realized that we would have a come down from that, and then that come down can be a fresh way of like looking at the reality that's presented to you.